of each other's way when they're on slow laps. Hamilton's just waiting. He's not joining that queue particularly, waiting back. Wonder if everything is all okay with the Ferrari, if he's just managed to pull into queue and is waiting where he is on purpose.
And we're looking down into the McLaren garage, and joining us in commentary as well, I'm delighted to say, a man who's taken 2 pole positions at this venue in Formula One. David Coulthard joins us in the box. DC, what's the trick to a quick lap around here?
Well, my belief, it's all about the ability to do those big stops. Now, we've obviously lost a chicane at the end of the lap back from when I was going around the racetrack, but it's still incredibly important to have the ability and the confidence to carry that speed into your apex. Where it gets slightly complicated now with these bigger modern Formula One cars is, can you keep that aero platform stable? Especially when you're looking at the likes of entry 2, turn 2, 3. We've seen a few people fall foul there. 5, 6 has been a bit more clean, it has to be said, but, well, we haven't had them in the throes of qualifying. So expect to see a few aborted laps as they try and deliver the perfect lap.
And it is an exciting one to watch around this circuit. The C6 tyre, the softest compound in the Pirelli range, makes its debut this weekend. It was designed with street circuits like Monaco in mind, but overall it's been brought to a racetrack like this to try and essentially, Jolene, spice up the racing action.
Yeah, I mean, it's a softer tyre. This race historically has been a pretty low deg one stop, so even if the soft tyre isn't used tomorrow, it will force everyone to use what was last year's soft tyre as a race tyre, so that should still hold water for tomorrow's race. And it's been a difficult place to overtake on. In your day, DC, as well, with the Variante Bassa, the final chicane, it was difficult to pass on. It's always been the way around Imola. So just having these softer tyres makes qualifying arguably more difficult, but maybe we'll throw that into a better race tomorrow.
Yeah, one way to not have to worry about overtaking, of course, is stick it on pole, launch your start, and then rely on some slick work from your team. That actually, it often does cross my mind that why do we get surprised when the guy that sticks it on pole then goes on to win the Grand Prix? And usually they've had the fastest package, but as we know from this year, not always has the quickest car in quali been able to look after its tyres, which is exactly where that softer compound question mark comes in for tomorrow.
It might favour McLaren slightly for tomorrow. We know how well they looked after their tyres in Miami. We will see if they can qualify it on pole. They've been the fastest cars through practice, but it's been very close, and Red Bull could well have something to say about it with Max Verstappen in this qualifying hour. Hamilton's obviously okay. He was waiting at the end of the pit lane, but this Ferrari is firing on a soft tyre straight away.
Yeah, straight out on the soft tyre. No one running the medium at this stage, so they've had 2 hours to take their learnings from the final practice session and implement them into the next part of the weekend and the crucial grid-setting part of the weekend. Alonso is ahead of Sainz, then it's Bortoleto ahead of Stroll, Behrman, then Hülkenberg and Ocon are the times on the board. That's about to change because Lewis Hamilton's going to go over the line, and he goes behind Aston Martin. And the green liveried cars built at the Silverstone factory have brought a huge raft of updates as Alonso chases his first point-scoring finish of the season so far. Alex Albon has been in the points on all but one occasion so far in Formula 1 2025, and he is now the lead car in the classification on a 1:16.1.
Incredibly close, as we've got used to seeing this year, as they're all out there sort of finding where the track evolution has been. We've had some support races out running on track since the free practice. It looked to me, just as we joined the off-board of Hamilton towards the end of the lap, it was like he was going over the front axle in the first of the two reversas, so not quite able to have the car rotating. So if they can get on top of that with tyre pressure, front wing, or just track evolution, expect to see a big step forward in his lap time.
Well, that has been a feature of this soft tyre. it's not giving them a huge amount of front end, so everyone's having to wash, particularly later on in the lap. And I don't think the grip level's that high. We saw a 1 minute 14.8 earlier on in practice. Last year's Q1, for reference, you needed to do a 16.5 to sneak through. So there's plenty. Bear in mind, there's a huge amount of track evolution and car evolution since last year. We've also got a step softer on compound. They should be easily past that, but for now, there's still a handful of cars that wouldn't be through last year's Q1 with 12 minutes to go.
Maybe deceptive on that nose cam, but he looked a little bit wider of apex down at the Tosa Corner turn 7 than you would normally want. But let's just see as there's a massive crash.
Huge moment into the barriers for Yuki Tsunoda. The red flag is deployed and Yuki Tsunoda is off into the tyre wall, and that is at the Villeneuve chicane.
Did I not tee that up? We had seen them go off at 2 and 3. We hadn't seen 5 and 6 until now.
Yeah, the big moments were for the Racing Bulls in practice at the first chicane, at the Tamburello chicane, but Yuki Tsunoda finding the wall at the second chicane of this racetrack, and he is out in the first part of qualifying.
That's massive damage to the Red Bull, isn't it? That is a pit lane start, most likely for Tsunoda tomorrow.
Great to see that he's able to get out of the car under his own power, but as you say, Jolyon, a massive rebuild. You could hear from the Red Bull garage the "oh no" when they saw the replay. The crowd applauding him getting out of the car, but that is a big rebuild.
It's been a really tricky weekend for Yuki as well. He just was commenting earlier on saying there's absolutely no grip on this soft tyre. That's what he started this session on. Again, this is his first flying lap, and I guess he's dropped it in the left part of this at really high speed. There we go, it's nailed that apex curb, and it's unsettled the car.
Let's have a look at this from the trackside view. Big speed, he rolls around the barrier and is lucky to finish the right way up. That shows you how close the walls are, and a massively violent impact.
Holy smokes.
Yeah, big crash there. And it looks to me, Jolyon, as if he got aggressive, more aggressive than we've seen from many cars on that left-hand part, turn 5 on the curb, and the barriers and the catch fencing doing a fantastic job to stop what is a very high speed, weighty mass. And thankfully, Marshall's driver all okay. But as we start to dissect what led to moments from disaster, I think he got greedy on that curve.
Yeah, it's an absolute aeroplane crash, isn't it? When he hits the barrier, you're approaching at high speed, side on, and he's just lifted the car into that roll. So I think what's happened there is Tsunoda has been struggling earlier on. Verstappen, even on the soft tyre that wasn't working that well for Max, was miles ahead of Yuki, and he's tried to dig in and work out what's going on, and he's then decided, okay, let's go more aggressive with it at the start of the lap. Let's take that curb, open up the corner, and he must have had a look and seen what some of his rivals were doing. But I think he's overdone it, and he's ended up taking a load more curb than he's done at another point in the weekend, and it's just pitched the car into that big snap sideways. We've seen it already at Tamburello, the first chicane through the weekend with the Racing Bulls, as you guys have said, and we haven't seen someone go that greedy on the apex. So I think Yuki's tried to reset himself before qualifying and thought, right, first flying lap, let's grab the bull by the horns. But the bull has grabbed him.
Yeah, well, maybe first flying lap is not the time to do it. Not trying to be clever here, but you've got an opportunity to sort of build yourself into where is the track now? Because yes, they practiced this morning, but with that factor of support races, track temperature going up, it is quite gusty. A reasonable headwind, which should help the car on that turn in phase to 5, but it's almost like a little bit of, rolling the dice had rolled in, had creeped in there, which I'm not sure he needed on that first run in quali.
Yeah, he really struggled to switch the soft tyre on earlier on, so he was looking for a big step forward. There was a comparison right at the end of the final practice session where Verstappen did a lap time 1.2 seconds faster than Tsunoda in a like-for-like run. So Tsunoda was chasing something out there, and you've seen the effect of it. It's the first time he's been eliminated in Q1 all season long.
And he was 17th earlier on. So he doesn't have the luxury that Max has to build in. He may well have been going out in Q1 on pure performance from what we saw earlier on. This has not been an easy weekend for Yuki on a circuit he's actually thrived on in the past. But I think that's why he knows that he's only got 2 or 3 laps to try and find something. And if you start quick, it's easy to then find small gains. Whereas if you start being a little bit cautious, it's harder to then make the bigger jumps in those final laps.
Let's go to the studio for a bit of analysis with Alex Brundle.
Completely agree with your point, JP, that Yuki's decided to be more aggressive generally. I'm going to take it back one section of corners to the entry of Tamburello. And Yuki actually takes more curb than we've seen from most drivers all weekend in Tamburello as well, look, climbing all over that first curb of this section of 3 corners at the beginning of the racetrack. So I think I completely agree with you that he's basically decided that there is performance to be taken over the curbs in this first sector. You can see the eventual incident, and it's pretty clear the moment when the car bounces back onto the road, that contact with the rear of the floor that we've seen throughout the weekend with drivers spinning in various moments. And then, of course, the really nasty impact on the outside, rolling the car over. Let's get rid of that picture as quickly as we can. Really nasty to see. But yeah, you can see that he's taken the approach of trying to steal a bit of performance very early in qualifying on the curbs, and it's just not paid off, leading to the incident that we saw.
Thank you, Alex, taking us through the incident that has brought out the red flag in the first part of qualifying. You're looking at Peter Sauber down at the team that has bared his name for a 600 Grand Prix stint in Formula One. Incredible run that the Sauber name has endured for. Just an update for you, Yuki Tsunoda has gone to the medical centre for a bit of a checkup, as you would expect when the G-force light is illuminated on the car. That is all part of the procedure.
Can I share with you my Peter Sauber 600 races and various iterations celebration story?
Please do, DC. I'm looking forward to this.
So back in the dark ages, when I was in Formula One, my manager at the time, Martin Brundle, was deployed to see what teams were available for me to drive for the following year, and they said, right, we've got a meeting with Peter Sauber. So we went along to his motorhome in Monaco. We sat down. He looked over and he said, I know why you're here, and I'm not interested.
Oh, no.
But he was so polite that he took the meeting out of respect, I guess, for Martin, and then very quickly and efficiently in a Swiss-like way didn't waste any time in saying anything else before you leave.
Oh, no.
Wow. Well, a polite rejection.
I love the man.
But still a rejection.
Oh, you must have not been feeling too tall leaving that motorhome.
No, I didn't. But you got to respect honesty. You know, that's the thing. It's like, I remember Sir Frank Williams, the day after I discovered he'd lied to me the day before, when I approached him on it. And he said, yes, I did lie to you because you're one person and I have 500 employees I'm responsible to. And if I'd told you the truth yesterday, it could have compromised my team. So it's very difficult to be angry at someone who admits to their lies.
Team principals in Formula One are a different breed. We're looking down into the Racing Bulls garage, and they have had Isaac Hadjar entrenched in the top 10 at various points of the weekend. He did have that spin yesterday. His teammate followed it up earlier on as well. You're looking at the barrier repairs. So the nature of the circuit there, you can see there's 2 rows of the tyres, then there's a concrete wall, and there's a conveyor belt. It's not quite the same setup that we see at other circuits around the world. You've got the gravel trap there and the grass that the car dug into. Let's have another look at the moment. High-speed crash. Got to remember, they're taking enormous speed. These are chicanes, but they're taking such a high average speed. Curb doesn't look high enough to unsettle the car, and then into the wall, and there's the roll.
Crucially, you saw that impact with the tarmac as the car came off the curb. That puts load into the chassis, takes the load off the tyres, and as we know, these huge aerodynamic devices as they are, just enough to take away a little bit of downforce, and then the momentum is going to take you to a barrier that I don't recall in my memory any car ever crashing on.
He's had an accident at turn 5.
He's okay.
He's okay. So he's had an accident at turn 5.
He's okay.
He's okay.
The image of it.
Oh my God, I just saw the video.
Yeah, big crash.
Is he okay?
Yeah, he's okay. He's out of the car.
Yeah, most importantly, he is okay. And that is the first thing that Red Bull, in the hospitality behind me and in the garage in front of me, are going to make sure that their driver is okay. And they're going to communicate that to everybody in the team, to Max out on track. And it's going to happen the same all the way down the paddock. That's the first thing everybody wants to know is the driver okay? Now, after that, it's a different story if you're in Red Bull versus the other team. Let's talk about Red Bull first. So they now have a very long night ahead of them. That car, looking at the damage, you could see the mechanics looking at the screen and they can see, you know, you don't need to be a Formula One mechanic to see that that's a long night. That's potentially a lot of damage and a lot of rebuild. That has repercussions not only on tomorrow in terms of can they get the car back together, do they have the pieces here, but on the entirety of the triple header. And in the era of cost cap, which we are in now, that crash damage could potentially also count into repercussions later on in the season. For Yuki himself, we have an automatic safety trigger. So when you have a crash that's a higher G, even if you're completely fine, if you can walk away untouched, we go and we check in the medical center. And he needs to be cleared to check he's completely A-OK before he can go racing tomorrow. And if he does go racing tomorrow, expect that car to start from the pit lane. Now, for the other 9 teams, and indeed for Max Verstappen's side of the garage, they are using this time to recalculate. And they're going to be constantly recalculating based on the changing track conditions. As the clock goes forward, the track gets cooler as we go later into the night. We have 12 minutes and 13 seconds left on the clock. Every one of the 10 heads of strategies and their teams on those pit walls will know exactly what run plan they were planning on doing with 12 minutes and 13 seconds left on the clock. Effectively, now they have a Q3 session. The big teams have already gone out. They've set a fast lap time. Expect them to go out on a used C6 tyre. Now, is it completely rubbish? No. Is it not going to be as good as a strong one? Yes. Expect the teams at the bottom end of the pit lane to go out on a new set. Effectively, they have to do a baby session, but you still don't get any new extra tyres. On paper, it could be 2 runs of 1 time lap, or potentially 2 runs with more time laps if they do a pit stop in the pit lane, which they can do, or 1 run with longer. You can see right now, everybody is waiting to go, and that will be a massive fight in the pit lane as we go. I think we've got a restart time.
I have no idea. He got a hold sign.
So what do I do?
Sorry, mate. That was meant to be a hold. That wasn't a full release. We were just going to creep out.
I go to a light or not?
Yeah, just go to... I have no idea. He got a hold sign.
So what do I do?
Sorry, mate. That was meant to be a hold. That wasn't a full release. We were just going to creep out.
I go to a light or not?
Yeah, just go to the light now.
Management on the radio to him saying what's happened there, we could be due a penalty for this, shouldn't have released, and he's got back on the radio accidentally to Franco and said I don't know why he's gone, he had the hold sign, and then he's had to own up. Yeah, but if you own up to your mistakes and your lies, then it's all fine.
Well, DC will let you off the hook.
Yeah, I thought it was a release.
Yeah, that wasn't clear to you, I'm sorry.
Franco Colapinto in for Jack Doohan, and Q1 was always going to be difficult for both of them, not just from a point of view of being competitive when you're jumping back into Formula One, but when you have to communicate so much with your race engineer about not impeding. We saw Oscar Piastri get a penalty for impeding Kevin Magnussen in Q1 here last year, and a bit of miscommunication out there, and the car can expect a penalty on the evidence that we saw from Mercedes in Bahrain.
It's unlikely to matter on Franco's first race of the season.
This is true.
Because, I mean, getting through into Q2 would be a decent achievement, should be said, for the Alpine team with a new driver at the wheel. It would be frustrating for him if he does put in some sort of heroics in this and then cops a penalty for it.
Yeah, it was one-place grid penalties for the Mercedes pair in Bahrain. Lewis Hamilton waiting, everyone slowly meandering out onto the circuit. Let's recap times on the board that we've seen. Alex Albon was ahead of this man, Fernando Alonso, by 7 hundredths of a second. Then Hamilton, Sainz, Leclerc, Bortoleto, Stroll, Behrman, Hulkenberg and Ocon, who's been really struggling across the course of the weekend. 20th fastest, a driver who's been as high as 5th in a Grand Prix this year, but perhaps not getting on with a bumpy circuit once again. And on the left-hand side, you can see all the drivers that were out there pushing on, but didn't get a chance to complete their laps with the red flag from Yuki Tsunoda.
Yeah, well, as the last cars look at meandering out onto track, we can see we've got Colapinto already at 18, the second of the Ravazzas, opening his lap. So he's going to have to feed his way through a little bit of compliant but slow-moving traffic.
Yeah, so the negotiating the turns of the racetrack and making sure that you're not impeding is always a factor of Q1, but here it's heightened.
I don't often see that level of intense weaving from a car on an outlap on a soft tyre, but that is Isaac Hadjar desperate to get temperature into the front, which is the axle that hasn't been firing on this soft tyre. Hadjar has been firing. He's been really, really quick so far through this weekend, and we'll be hoping he can get something on the board immediately. And yeah, that's why he's giving it everything. This is a scrub tyre, as Ruth was explaining in the gap. Most of the field have gone back out on the first tyre they started this session on.
Well, the marker was laid by Verstappen, certainly in the first sector. He moved that sector time down over the initial runs from Albon, Alonso and the likes. Didn't complete the lap, of course, because of his teammate's incident. So we're going to see steady evolution of that lap time.
Will be dropping all the time. Isaac Hadjar was successful around this racetrack in his junior career. He was the feature race winner, so no reverse grids for the feature race in Formula 2. Lined up and beat Gabriel Bortoleto in a straight fight around this circuit, and he is really hustling the racing ball.
Absolutely. The commitment actually over the hill at 9, where despite the massive downforce these cars generate, you certainly feel that sort of heart-to-mouth moment a la roller coaster ride. And I think that's actually one of the things, Jolene, that sums up why the drivers enjoy the challenge of this track. It's got a little bit of that Spa elevation, you know, where else, Red Bull Ring. Anyone that's got a bit of elevation change just really makes you feel a bit more engaged.
Oh, I was just thinking that as we jump on board. Every time the cars look lively, and it's elevation change that does it. Portimao, we had a Grand Prix in the COVID year at Portimao, and that was like a roller coaster ride coming through there. The elevation change is wild, but this is something similar, dropping down the hill into Acqua Minerale. We got a quick right into a slower right, and then look at the climb here, straight out of it. Imagine you're sitting even lower down. You're just looking at the sky now as you head up towards the Variante Alta.
Yeah, you don't actually see your braking zone, or certainly the apex of the top chicane, until quite late in that approach. And again, here, another perfect example, and as you've pointed out, Julian, we don't have that nice high camera angle that's afforded by F1 TV. We're right down inside the cockpit. You know, your buttocks literally millimeters above the tarmac.
It is bumpy out there, as you can see from the Haas of Ollie Behrman coming across the line, and he is in 12th position. The only car he has beaten in terms of the lap time is his teammate Esteban Ocon. This is turning into another one of those races where Haas just cannot get the car to run reliably as low as they need for performance. A man who was in the top 3 in practice on Friday is the fastest driver out there. Crucially, ahead of both Williams cars, Gasly is P1.
Antonelli hanging on to it through the exit of the Variante Alta then. You could just see him working at the wheel, and we have seen so much of that on the soft tyre, particularly right at the end of the laps, with a bit of understeer, some oversteer here for the Mercedes, and it is difficult for them to navigate all of these corners without just making small mistakes here or there.
Yeah, and that wasn't a great opening sector for him. Let's see where he pops him third in the running right now. Verstappen has taken that first sector performance down a further couple of tenths on what I assume are those screw-up tyres that he didn't quite complete the lap. So, yeah, getting a clear lap, getting the front tyre talking to you, it's all part of the challenge.
So Russell went over the line in second place, make that third because Max Verstappen has blitzed the time out there, half a second quicker than Fernando Alonso, who needed a new set of softs. George Russell needed a new set, but Max Verstappen, I believe, was on an old set of the soft tyre, and that is an impressive lap time to go with it then, a 1:15.1 for the reigning world champion. Max Verstappen moves into first. Lewis Hamilton, his first visit to this circuit in Ferrari red. He is down to 10th thanks to that effort from Lando Norris.
I was going to say, he's nearly a second drift of Verstappen, like for like on tyres, but look at Norris's pace. He's also 7/10 down on Verstappen. Shows what a mighty lap that Max has done straight out of the blocks, and he did that. Well, he was going to do something similar on the lap where Tsunoda crashed as well. Piastri gets the gap down to 3/10 out front, but this just really shows Red Bull are hooked up. They didn't manage to do it earlier on the soft. They were good on the medium. Seems like they've found something on the soft as well now.
This is a racetrack where Max Verstappen has been awesome in recent times. He has won the last 3 Grand Prix held around this venue, and that's a good, tidy advantage to have at the early stages. Fernando Alonso is another winner around here, all the way back in 2005. He parks up, having set the 3rd fastest time, but having used new rubber to do so.
Alex, I'm always fascinated with your choice of words. You are a wordsmith, but did you choose awesome as we were looking at Zach Brown? Because that's one of his favourite words.
might have been subconscious there, DC. Might have been nestled in the subconscious. So we know that Yuki Tsunoda has had the big crash and is out of the first part of qualifying. We know the Haas's have really been struggling, and the 2 Saubers are also in the drop zone. 4 remaining places to be filled in the drop zone as we look at Lando Norris. Kicking up a bit of dust on the exit of Tosa.
The underneath of the car won't thank him for that on a first flying lap of Q1. Out wide, fighting an oversteer, and then just rumbling along that raised curb.
Yeah, I think he was caught out by with the axle, the rear grip just not talking to him. You would think at that stage of the lap he would have had a feeling for just how much rear grip as we go for a little power slide with Charles Leclerc as well.
That was a replay of Piastri as well coming out of Tosa getting wide. Leclerc's wide, Alonso's very quick. Stroll is in the gravel as well there coming out. That's Piratella, that's a quick corner there, the left-hander.
That's
risky.
Brave.
Really risky at Piratella. You have a Tsunoda-like accident if you overcommit at that corner. Huge direction change speed there. As we look at the projected knockout time, bottom right of your picture, we're ticking down here. We've had a Q1 interrupted with a red flag for a big accident for Yuki Tsunoda, who was able to walk away from the wreckage of his Red Bull. Look at that magnificent sight of the Tifosi painted all over the hill with a great view of the main straight here and the Ravazza corners that complete the lap. This historic circuit that runs to 3 miles. And can anyone put the pressure on those ahead then? We've got Stroll, we've got Hamilton down in 11th, we've got Stroll, we've got Hadjar, we've got Colapinto and Lawson.
Stroll was leaving the pits there on mediums. So we are going to see some people having a punt on what is the theoretically slower tyre, but is it going to come to life better than the...
That was a big impeding from Sauber.
Okay, copy.
What's Antonelli trying to get a Sauber penalised for at this stage?
I reckon he was all in a quandary when he left the pits, that's why, Julian. Did you often find yourselves in a quandary, sitting there with your engineer going, shall we go mediums or softs?
And it's how it goes, isn't it? And you know what? As soon as I said it, DC, I thought that's going to come back.
Well, you are an educational man for my simple village roots from Scotland. There were so many words we didn't use.
There's Peter Sauber, who had no room in the inn for DC in yesteryear. But let's see whether there's any room for a Sauber in Q2, shall we? They're on the softs. The Aston Martin is on the medium with Lance Stroll. So Stroll's trying something different. They've not had the performance on the soft tyres, so they're going to see whether they can get a more consistent grip from the front end on the yellow-walled medium compound. Not the fastest tyre, but they're going to see whether they can get a more consistent turn-in to rotate around the corners of Imola.
Wow, you've got to say, Bortoleto, full commitment, if not right on the ragged edge, which, hey, it's qualifying. And this could decide whether he makes it through. But I don't know, Jolene, I'm kind of slightly... I'm finger-tipping my microphone here.
He's on it. He's been really quick so far this whole weekend, actually, Bortoleto. Had good form here in Formula 2 last year, knows the place, likes the place, and he's one sector away from trying to get up inside the top 15 with this lap as well. He's right there with Nico Hülkenberg on pace, as he has been through the weekend, and they're right there together through two sectors.
Yeah, very even pace split between the two. Norris improves up to 5th, but we're looking at the bottom end. Can the Saubers escape? Bortoletto's done a lap time that gives himself a chance. He's improved by just shy of 0.04 of a second, and Hülkenberg is in the gravel at the Ravazzas, trying to make his way to the second one, scrubbing wide and seeing his chance of improving disappear. He will not make it through. Bortoletto's given himself a chance. Lawson needs a response.
Usually that's the obligatory off around Imola, is just being lured into braking too late for Ravazza, the downhill braking zone. And Hülkenberg actually has been the first driver all weekend to dip his toes into that gravel, and it's cost him at a crucial time. Bortoleto at the moment is through, but Behrman, Ocon, Lawson are all gunning for it. Here's Ocon to the line.
Over the line we go with the Hasses. Ocon cannot improve, and we've got the yellow flag out on the circuit. And a big accident again. Franco Colapinto with a moment into the barriers, and he reports that he is okay, but that will complete things for qualifying. The clock has run out. Behrman escaped. Behrman escaped seconds before the red flag. It registers on our screen up in 10th position, and Behrman changes the order. He demotes Bortoleto, Lawson, Hülkenberg and Ocon are the drop zone. Turn 4 is the part of the racetrack we are focusing on, and Franco Colapinto has reported he is okay. He would have been told to remain in the car until given the clearance on the radio, and he's back in Formula 1, but it's not been a return to remember so far. Q1 and 2 big accidents, the second of which Franco Colapinto in the Alpine.
He's had okay pace until this point, to the tune that he's actually technically
through
into Q2. He's through. But it's not the first time in Franco's short F1 career he's been through with a smashed car. And it's just not ideal when you're coming back in first race. This is one of those ones where you want to bed yourself in. It is a punishing circuit. You don't need to be a hero immediately. I mean, maybe you could say Alpine should give him more than 5 races, because there is the pressure of having to perform every time he's in the car like this. But he's not done himself any favours with that one. It's another hefty whack.
Yeah, it's difficult if you get a reputation of being a bit of a crasher, and at Williams there were quite a few incidents there. He's clearly very quick, and if he can harness the occasional excursion, then we're about to have the opportunity joining him past start-finish down into the sequence of turn 2, 3. Is it going to be on the curb on the exit? It's on the grass. They went to the grass, and you've got to accept, if you're going beyond the tarmac, you've got to lift.
Okay, mate, you okay?
Yeah, sorry.
You okay, buddy? You okay? Okay, mate, you okay?
Yeah, sorry.
You okay, buddy? You okay?
Yeah, sorry.
That's okay, mate, as long as you're okay.
They're going to be heading to the barrier. Behrman got his lap in with seconds before the red, but he's lost it again on the times there. So it looked to me like he had it fractionally before, and because Colapinto's crash was in the first sector, he may well have done that legitimately, but that has now gone.
They will be arguing about that, I imagine, on the pit wall at Haas to race control, because it did appear that he was able to register the lap time before we got the red flag graphic. We know that Q2 is going to be delayed. We had one time deleted for track limits, but race control have deleted the time for Oliver Behrman for not being completed before the red flag dropped around the circuit.
Looked like Perez wasn't going to be investigated for impeding briefly well.
Good news for Checo.
Good news for Checo, who's in the clear for this one. Yeah, interesting one for Ollie Behrman then. And Haas definitely will be arguing that. That will be done on an official time. So presumably he's not managed to get it in. This was Nico Hülkenberg. Oh, just fractionally late on the brakes, turned it in, little dab of oversteer, and that sent him wide.
Yeah, you've got to have that confidence, haven't you, when you're doing these big stops, to be able to roll it into the apex. But one little correction on the wheel was enough to then take him a little bit off the ideal line where it's not optimal grip. And then it's painful. You know, that curve, that exit curve comes to meet you, and then tarmac turns into gravel.
You just see the loss immediately come up, and then you're on the run to the line. You think you've done a good enough lap, but a Sauber has to be perfect to get through. And with Behrman dropping back down, Bortoleto is still sitting in the car as a Q2 contender for the moment.
We'll wait for the replay, because there's always the defining replay, and we can run it through frame by frame. The lights all illuminate red at the end of the session, so there's always a very clear delineation of whether a car has cut the beam, cut the line, and registered a time before those lights illuminate. So we're always able to show that. Hopefully we can dig that replay out for you. We are at the end of a very dramatic Q1. You've got to ride the curbs for a quick lap time around this circuit, but Colapinto on his return to Formula One has found the barriers. Yuki Tsunoda trying to find more performance from his Red Bull compared to practice out as well, and it looks like a headrest adjustment for Lewis Hamilton in the Ferrari garage.
And while all that was happening, Hülkenberg was going wide, Colapinto was in the barriers, Lance Stroll on his mediums went fourth quickest. So that is your confirmation. I think the medium tyre is just quicker than the soft. And all the top teams will be banking this for what they want to run on to try and get pole position. We know how critical pole will be for the Grand Prix tomorrow around this circuit. That's a very useful bit of information that Stroll, Aston Martin obviously looked good, Alonso's still third. Stroll jumped to fourth on a medium.
You see a bit of weather in the distance, which could change things entirely. I haven't seen any risk of rain reported across the weekend so far, but the pictures tell a story.
Yeah, there was actually 2 or 3 small drips about an hour or so ahead of quali, and it's just localized cloud that's been passing through, but that definitely looks like more of a front. But I think it will not affect this particular qualifying session. Maybe some of the support races later.
Yeah, we'll have to deal with the incoming weather. That's Oliver Behrman. His time deleted because it wasn't completed under green flag running. And it would be a very clear thing for race control to see. But the fact that he is still in the car suggests that they are continuing to argue it down at Haas.
It was a very fine call. According to our screen, it looked like he'd got it in, and then it went red by a split second. But Haas are going to be arguing it because he's been chalked back off. And, of course, Bortoleto wants to sit in the car because he just wants to focus on a next flying lap and trying to make some more progress from 15.
Okay, in the drop zone, Lawson, Hülkenberg, Ocon, Behrman and Tsunoda, who had the big crash. Let's go through the defining footage with Alex Brundle.
I don't think Oliver Behrman quite makes it, guys. Let's slow this down as he gets to the start-finish line at the end of that lap. You can see as he comes through this final corner up to the control line, which is where the flag is, the lights there on the gantry already red. So I think that Oliver Bearman will not make it, and the time he will lose, at least from what I can see here on the screen. So I think running that through a couple of times, Oliver Bearman pretty clearly doesn't make the lap, and Haas are not going to be able to keep it.
Ask for the footage, and Alex Brundle will find it for us. Thank you very much, sir. And so clearly the red light's illuminated. The start-finish line is at the back end of the grid rather than the front. So we're looking for the line that is by the checkered flag, and you can see, there you go, all 5 red lights illuminated, the red flag flying, and there you go, the clear indication of why he lost that lap time that had momentarily put him through.
Why am I last on the thing?
Yeah, we're checking our loop.
On the board, I didn't do a lap now, it says.
Yeah, we're checking it. Hopefully it's a mistake. But we'll get ready to go anyway.
Why am I last on the thing?
Yeah, we're checking our loop.
On the board, I didn't do a lap now, it says.
Yeah, we're checking it. Hopefully it's a mistake. But we'll get ready to go anyway.
the confidence that you know what the car's going to do.
So still, Oliver Bearman sits in the car. He is not yet exited the car. You're looking for, when he crosses the line, we were looking at the replay earlier on, you're looking for a solid bank of lights. So the red lights are on because of the end of the session, but the row above would obviously illuminate as well. So you would have 3 rows of the lights to show that the red flag was out, and there's an LED panel there. But they're still continuing to go through it at the moment, and he's still remaining in the car. So this is a continuing debate, but they are keeping the British driver in the car, and it's under review according to race control. So this lap time that looked good enough to progress, then was deleted, is now back under review.
So if we got the information that the red flag was flying on our screens at the same time as it was actually flying, then he got it in within a second of it going.
Yeah.
There is obviously confusion, and now it seems like the race control and having a look and seeing exactly the order of things. I'm surprised they chalked it off so quickly, actually. It'd be easier to sort of leave it as it was at the red and then delete as and when necessary. It was
Review is good. Sorry, Jolene, I was going to say review gives you hope.
Yeah, Bortoleto is the driver at risk. This is a strange one, but of course they're taking more time here because of the situation that we had in Bahrain with Alex Albon and Nico Hülkenberg. Hülkenberg's time was beyond track limits. Albon was knocked out, but should not have been knocked out. They only rectified it towards the end of the qualifying hour before the damage is done. And that is why we have the delay at the moment. Looking for a solid bank of lights on the main gantry and the red LED panel that's next to it. The first lights that Ben passes are just for the use of the start, so there's no extra light, and the red light is only visible by the time that he gets fairly close. If the as Jolene says, if the graphics fire at the exact time the red flag was flown, Bearman did make it. If there's a little bit of a lag there, they're going to have to do it frame by frame on what they saw on the main straight. So that is why we are waiting to see which 15 cars will compete in the second part of qualifying.
Well, I'm glad they're taking their time, because would you like a story from the past if we've got a little bit of time?
DC, you know the answer is always yes.
Okay, thank you. So there was a scenario when I was at Red Bull and Heikki Kovalainen was at McLaren, and I impeded him unintentionally when Jonathan Wheatley, excuse me, Jolene.
I was wondering where that story was going.
Not your father, but the new team principal at Kick Sauber didn't give me the call. So in between Q2 and Q3, the stewards decided that I impeded, and therefore they wouldn't let me take part in Q3. So I qualified 10th, only for them to afterwards, when we queried it, they went, yeah, we would in future not stop you taking part, so you'd qualify, and then we'd then review it and apply a penalty. So sometimes they have been trigger happy in the past.
It changes year to year, but DC not getting his opportunity back in the day, and the drivers are waiting with all of us at the moment for the big news. Will Bearman make it? Will he get a reprieve and get a chance to fight in the next part of qualifying, or is it going to be a deleted lap time for setting his best lap, the time that got him through under the red flag? Not allowed to do it. Once the red flag is out, no one's allowed to log a lap time.
What's our gut feeling on this one then?
Well, they're going to need, because the timing page and the timing of the graphics hit after he'd logged the lap time and got the checkered flag graphic next to his name at the end of the session. They're going to need conclusive proof, aren't they, that he didn't make it? I think that's what Haas are going to be saying. The graphics, the timing system said that he did make it before the red flag hit. So can they find the footage that disproves that? It's a little bit like going to VAR in the football. Can they find something to overturn the decision?
Right, it's a bit of a ridiculous delay, isn't it, for the guy that's 15th to see who's going to be taking that last spot. I understand that taking their time and making sure the decision is right shouldn't be that hard. I mean, it came in. My gut is that he did the lap and he got it in. The red flag was obviously very delayed from the incident. The incident was at the start of the lap. The race director then let anyone that was coming through complete their laps by not flying an immediate red, and I think he just got it in. but it's obviously a millisecond decision here.
Yeah, it is less than a second if he's made it in.
Your enthusiasm for it, Julian, is very persuasive. So I'm going to go with you in the absence of having any technical input on this one.
Well, we're all waiting around. We're still on air, aren't we? We're still on air. And we're going to show you the second part of qualifying. I promise, stay with it because it's a beautiful racetrack. Best drivers in the world. It'll be well worth watching, but we've got to find out who the final 15 are as we move into the next part of qualifying. We're showing you some aerial shots as you have a look at the big wheel. You've got the running track. You've got some apartments and villas in between the infield here as well. All the fans at Ravazza. It's a historic place.
That's a bit of prime quality filling there, Alex.
I appreciate it. So I'm going to carry on filling and you give me marks out of 10, DC. Is that how we're going to do it? Because this one feels open-ended compared to the breaks that we normally get. So this is all a result of what happened in Bahrain, where we let Hulkenberg through, race control let Hulkenberg through when his time should have been deleted, and Williams were displeased by that because it effectively compromised the chance of Alex Albon scoring points.
It was the DC, wasn't it? It was the DC Red Bull 2008. Wanted the chance to go, didn't get it.
I'm not bitter. I've let it go. So my counsellor told me.
Okay, time to check in with Alex Brundle because we now know that we'll be kicking off at 58 minutes past the hour, so not long to wait, but let's go through the incident that's causing the delay.
Guys, I'm going to own up here. I think Behrman makes it. He came round the corner and I saw a blur of red, but when you run it actually back and have a look at it one more time in slow motion, that panel is the one that we're actually looking for, rather than the red lights, which denote the end of the session, of course. He crosses the timing line here. That red panel doesn't illuminate and doesn't start flashing, further confusing the issue, because it flashes away for the rest of the lap when we're under red flag conditions. But it's not flashing currently and doesn't start flashing until he makes it down to very close to the start line. So there we go. AB, prone to human error, saw those red lights on the gantry round the corner, and I think Oliver Behrman, by the lights which are displayed on the pit straight, actually does make it across the line.
Alex, can we wind it back? I don't know if you can hear me. We'll find out. Can we just wind it back and take it through across the line as slowly as possible? Because just to clear it up, let's play race control. Here we go. So across we go. We're looking for the lights above the red lights or the LED panel. So we're looking for the row above the red lights. There is the line. We're going to go across the line. So wind it on. At the moment, it's looking good for Behrman. There's the line. Crosses the line, and he's, by the evidence that we've got on our picture, through into Q2. There's the top row, and I think he's made it.
I think he's made it too. So the light that we're looking for is that light there, not to be confused in the red blur with the lights that denote the end of the session. So I think he's made it through as a result of the footage that we see. But we'll see if race control decide the same thing. Managed to confuse me the first time around, so I'm not surprised they're taking their time about it.
It all correlates with what we saw on the times at the time as well. You know, it's within a second and then it goes red. So, hey, we're all a bit confused at this point, but it looks like
they're going to have to let him in. They're going to have to let him in.
The thing I'm really confused is why we have someone like Alex, who's colorblind, talking to us about lights, colors.
I love it. We appreciate Alex Brundle taking us through the footage. And race control are going to have to make a decision sooner rather than later, because we need to see the best drivers in the world attacking the racetrack. In a few minutes, we know Q2 will start, so we're expecting a verdict any moment now. Gabriel Bortoleto is heading into the pit lane. And after all of that, Gabriel Bortoleto is like, cool, nice replay package, Alex Brundle. I'm going to take my place in the fast lane.
One way to force the issue, isn't it? Go down there, queue up. You got to haul me back now.
Well, it's not the qualifying.
Now going to send Behrman.
Oh my word! It feels like it's that sort of session at the moment. It's peak Formula One. And Behrman appears to have been knocked out in the part of qualifying that we had to start the session. We will eventually put 15 minutes on the board. And Charles Leclerc acknowledging the camera op down there. Plenty of Argentine football shirts surrounding the racetrack thanks to Franco Colapinto's return. And Gabriel Bortoleto has decided to park up, and if we continue in the same vein of form as we have for the last 20 minutes or so, we'll now get a message from race control saying Oliver Behrman's back in, and they have to wheel him back. But at the moment, Bortoleto is parked up at the end of the pit lane.
I love the gamesmanship from Sauber. If in doubt, just assume it's all going to be fine. And now if there is a 50-50, then I think race control will probably just say, oh, just let the guy that's queued up go out on circuit.
It shouldn't be 50-50, though. It should be exact. That's why we have timing lines and the red button being pushed.
Yeah, I'm baffled as to why it's not. That's why we have Alex Brundle on the case to deep dive this and explain what is exactly going on. But yet we still have, we're 1 minute away from a green light, 30 seconds away, and we only see that Behrman's time is under review, and so Bortoleto's in his rights to go and get out there.
Brundle's gone to a dark room to listen to relaxing whale noises after that review. Okay, DRS is enabled. We know we're getting a green light. No message from race control about whether it's Gabriel Bortoleto or Oliver Behrman in the session. The last news that we had is that Behrman's time was deleted and he wasn't taking part. So if we're going to get an update, it's going to be sooner rather than later, because that light is about to go green and we are about to start the second part of qualifying. And on we go. No further message, and Gabriel Bortoleto pours out onto the circuit as Oliver Behrman's afternoon is run. And I love this championship, celebrating 75 years this week, and sometimes you'll see something that you've never seen before, contended all the way to the green light. But it's Bortoleto in the session, and he's going to be joined by the world champion.
Well, the drama of the last 15 minutes appears to be over. I'm looking forward to seeing how that played out later on, because to us it did look like Behrman should be in it. As it is, it's a reprieve for Bortoleto, who's out there and has a chance to try and put on more qualifying heroics in the Sauber.
And then we got Verstappen on a brand new set of the soft tyres. And interestingly, he wasn't complaining in free practice of the sort of understeer that seems to have been affecting him in many of the Grand Prix this year. So seemingly able to get that front tyre switched on. Let's see if he's able to bring the lap time down a bit further and give us further indication as to where we might end up when we get to the final part of quali.
Ferrari's heading out onto the circuit. This is the circuit that is closest to their famous Maranello factory. And Lewis Hamilton with that huge headline move to the team at the start of the year has won in the sprint format in Shanghai and taken a sprint pole as well, and was in the top three of the sprint in Miami. But in Grand Prix it's been a tougher order so far. Was struggling with quicker than what Red Bull were able to do with Max Verstappen. The problem is that if things continue to the form book, they're going to be mired at the lower end of the top three unless their two quite brilliant drivers can force the issue later on. We've got 12 minutes to go, and I am so pleased to bring you a flying lap, because it feels like a while. Into Tamburello we go with Max Verstappen.
It's been a dramatic qualifying. We've only done Q1. Feels like we've been going at this for a while, with incidents on circuit, incidents off circuit. And it's difficult all the while for the drivers, I think, to keep a clear mind, not least for Bortoleto, who wasn't completely sure he'd be taking part in this qualifying. But now you've got to think, right, we're dialed back in. We're on a soft tyre once again, on board with Max, who seems hooked up at this stage. But now you've got to be back into your incremental gains. Grip levels coming up. How do you make the most of it with the setup? How do you adapt your driving?
Yeah, he's a little bit down, though, on what he's already established as Sector 1 potential. So what, just under 4 tenths slower there. So maybe not quite as happy in the opening part of the lap. It's going to be part of a bigger strategy, of course, on how to bring the tyres in.
This is a new soft tyre as well for Verstappen. Had a bit of a slipstream there from George Russell down towards Rivazza, just wisped up a little bit of the gravel coming out of Rivazza too, and will drive to the line, but it's not an absolutely stunning lap there for Max. A couple of tenths away from what he did in Q1.
We join Charles Leclerc at the Variante Alta. A little bit of a correction, and we are all right now on the C6 tyres. We're all on the soft tyre for everyone still competing out there. Maybe the roll of the dice for the mediums will come later on if you are finding yourself outside the top 10. This is the segment of qualifying to get yourself into the top 10. Then we reset the times to the pole position. Shootout, that's second fastest for Charles Leclerc. The gap is 0.2 of a second. How about a local hero? Kimi Antonelli has a flying lap at the moment. I know we're going to join him because we're looking at his clock, and here he is as he makes his way to the same chicane where we joined Charles Leclerc a few moments ago. Lives about 30 minutes drive away from here. He had his classmates at the circuit on Thursday for a pretty special field trip, and the 18-year-old has a couple of corners to go with his teammate going very nicely through the first sector.
The McLarens and the Mercedes both on track now trying to pump in the times. We'll start with Antonelli across the line, but you can see they're getting quicker behind him. First of all Russell, then Norris.
And Norris gets it on the soil for the time in Formula One. Better for his more experienced teammate George Russell. Now we'll throw it back to the middle. Where does he stack up compared to Max Verstappen? He is faster by just over 1/10 of a second, and then the only man ahead of Lando Norris in the points is Oscar Piastri, and the Australian driver is the one that we're following through Aqua Minerale to the chicane, where in practice he was taking 2 curbs here with so much aggression. He's changed that today. He's changed his driving line. He's not striking the second curb at the Variante Alta, and he has the fastest middle sector of anyone so far.
Yeah, he was threading that needle beautifully through there. Not visibly aggressive, like you said, Alex, but just see if he's managed to keep it tidy in the final 2 corners.
Looking good for Piastri. Oh, fine margins once again. 0.02 of a second between the 2 McLarens, who have been 1 and 2 throughout this weekend so far. And it's Piastri back ahead with 9 minutes to go. We're getting the flying laps in. Carlos Sainz has scored points on 3 occasions for Williams since he joined the famous team from Ferrari. And now he finds himself using a bit more of the curb out of the second Rivazza. Let's see where the Spanish driver can go. He pops it into 9th position. He'll want better than that.
Decent lap though from Sainz, still enough to get him into the top 10 and ahead of Antonelli. I'm looking at the lap from Hadjar though, it's an absolute belter at the start of Q2, up into the 7th place, running with the big guns, running just similar pace to the Ferraris at the moment. Oh, that's why Albon is not in the top 10.
Yeah, that is exactly a bigger event than we saw on board with Charles Leclerc. It seems to be as they come off the curb at that low speed, then for whatever reason their cars are just not soaking up the ability to change direction and maintain rear grip. So very costly in acceleration.
The cars are so stiffly sprung now that they need to be to try and keep low and take the ground effect gain of this generation of car. So the lower you can run it to the ground, the better your performance. The more soft and springy the car, you start bouncing and porpoising, and you have the change of attitude basically as the car's just minusculely popping up and down. But what it means is you're gaining downforce, but when you're bouncing over the curbs, that ride is harsher, and when you're coming off the curbs, you haven't got any level of absorption that you might have had in yesteryear. So we're seeing it with the crashes that we've had, particularly Tsunoda's one earlier on, and just every curb strike and the attitude of the car as it lands from the curb seems to be a bigger effect here.
Well, we've seen 2 big accidents already. Franco Colapinto not taking part in this session, even though he made it through. So Bortoleto looking for his best qualifying performance in Formula One. He achieved it last time out in Miami when he was 13th. That's the best he's managed so far. Gasly, given his strong performance in practice, will hope to at least make the top 10. You're looking at the one-time Grand Prix winner down in the pits at the moment. McLaren with a buffer over Max Verstappen. George Russell there as well, and Leclerc leading Hamilton with Hadjar once again for this local team, just a few minutes down the road, based in Faenza. And you go straight on the road out of the circuit and get to Faenza pretty quickly, and that team has been based there since the Minardi days. They do have a hub at Milton Keynes as well in the UK. Alonso, Sainz, Antonelli completing the top 10. Antonelli will be absolutely desperate to make it through to at least the top 10 shootout. And I wonder whether Stroll will repeat the trick that we saw from earlier on.
To join Gasly in his approach to the top chicane. That was relatively uneventful. Small correction for oversteer as he turned in, Jolene, but otherwise it just looked like an average attempt.
Limit of balance, a harsh critique, DC.
Nice job by the Aston Martin. What's the name of that smart guy in the Aston? I remember him.
No, he was more perturbed by the final couple of corners than his averageness through the top chicane there, I think, Gasly. He was just on the limit of grip, and yeah, you're right, there was nothing particularly remarkable about the Variante outer for him as he lines up in 12th and makes a vengeance against an Aston Martin. Back to what you said, Alex, about the tyres. No one has just an absolute heap of mediums to go on. Everyone has loads of soft tyres because this is what we generally have for qualifying. So that's why we're seeing the softs, even if they might not necessarily be the quickest tyre. Stroll and Alonso both went on to mediums at the end of Q1 and it worked well. We will see now if anyone wants to roll the dice with another set of mediums, but they can't just chuck them on willy-nilly because they don't have many. They've only got basically a set each at some point.
There is a DRS zone around this racetrack, but as the man in your picture at the moment proved last year.
Nice job by the Aston Martin. What's the name of that smart guy in the Aston? I remember him.
They have done it again. Their second set of mediums on, and I think that'll be that for them in qualifying, but they're just throwing everything to try and get their cars into Q3, obviously firmly believing that that tyre is better than the soft. They are the only ones that seem to believe that at this point, although if McLaren, if Red Bull thought it, they wouldn't be throwing them on now anyway because they want to use it for their final part of qualifying. Aston Martin are hoping that they can make it through by throwing everything at this one.
So here we go again, 3.5 minutes to go. The projected knockout time is on the right-hand side of your picture. And 14 cars will make their way from the pit lane. The Variante outer, the chicane at the top of the hill. 34 meters elevation change around this circuit. It's undulating, it's narrow. It's got so many great corners, including this one that Isaac Hadjar is heading into. The runner-up in the Formula 2 Championship last year. Proven race winner, proven pole position taker. And Red Bull kept the faith with him after he had a really ordinary first year in the championship. Graduating from Formula 3 to Formula 2, was outside the top 10 in the driver's standings. Red Bull continued to back him, and he backed that decision with a top 2 performance that got him the promotion to Formula 1. And Hadjar has been as high as 7th on the grid so far this year in his rookie campaign. After 6 traditional qualifying hours, he's the 11th best qualifier in the grid, or in the field, when it comes to setting the grid in Formula 1.
Yeah, I think you've got to say he's shown his speed. Certainly delivering a lap time in quali has not been an issue. And that's something although he didn't get to this 2,000-year-old ancient temple.
Tonight, Mexican authorities suing a company they say helped YouTube megastar Mr. Beast produce this now viral video.
Why is this not in a museum? Why is a YouTuber holding this? Get this away from me.
Titled, I Explored 2,000-Year-Old Ancient Temples. The video has racked up over 60 million views in less than a week.
This is the door to the inside of this massive Mayan temple.
Authorities say the video taken inside the nation's ancient pyramids violated the terms of government permissions.
We're gonna visit this bad boy.
In the video, Mr. Beast, whose real name is James Donaldson, explores ancient Mayan cities in southeastern Mexico.
Can I take one home?
Well, you will go to jail.
I would go to jail?
Yeah, sure.
At one point, the influencer, who has 395 million subscribers on YouTube, surprised at the level of access.
Can't believe the government's letting us do this.
And in another moment, advertising his snack product.
The only Mayan-approved snack on the planet.
In the video's caption, the internet celebrity thanks Mexico's National Institute of Anthropology and History for allowing him to film. But the agency who filed the suit saying in a statement that it gave the firm representing Mr. Beast, Full Circle Media, permission to film at the sites but not monetize the video, and that they are now demanding compensation for damages. Adding, the INAH condemns those who, for commercial gain and private profit, dare to destroy the value of archaeological sites, which are a legacy.
Now we see the Ferraris coming across the line with Hamilton P7. Sorry, DC.
No, I was just going to say, we now see Verstappen's managed to bring that first sector back into a window, but while he was doing that, we've suddenly got Sainz has gone purple, 23.6, almost 2/10 quicker than Verstappen in that first sector. So let's hopefully stay on board with Sainz to see what magic he's about to deliver to us.
This is magic for Sainz. He's with Piastri through 2 sectors, and this will hurt the jitters amongst Antonelli and Mercedes, and possibly Hamilton as well, because Albon is going quickly. So you've got 2 Williams going quickly. You've got 2 Aston Martins with opportunities still coming up as well. Gasly's out there and flying. Plenty of opportunity for others to jump up.
Sainz across the line. Sainz fastest in Q2, ahead of the McLarens and a Williams, and they're buoyant to what they've seen there. Can Albon back it up, though, and put pressure on those ahead? He gets to 7th. Antonelli on the brink here. Gasly is fighting. He's got a chance to move ahead. Can he get there? He's got 2 corners to go.
Stroll's going quickly in the Aston Martin as well. Look at him through 2 sectors. Antonelli's in big trouble.
He's out, yeah. He has not delivered in the middle sector.
Got to finish the lap, got to finish the final turn around the racetrack. Gasly gets across the line and eliminates Antonelli, and he's up to P6.
Both Ferraris are in trouble. 9th and 10th for Hamilton, but the 2 Aston Martins might knock them both out.
They've chucked a medium tyre at it. It's different thinking. It's quick thinking. And it's 6th position for Stroll. Hamilton is eliminated. Will it be both Ferraris? Fernando Alonso ensures it is both Ferraris. Charles Leclerc out. Lewis Hamilton out. Kimi Antonelli out. The exact opposite of what the majority of the crowd that lines this circuit would want to see. A big surprise at the end as Aston Martin's medium tyre gamble worked and the Ferraris fall at the 2nd hurdle.
Sorry guys, can't improve for some reason.
Well, there's a 10th and a half between the Ferrari duo. On the soft tyres, they have been outpaced by Albon, by Hadjar, by Sainz, who's outpaced a lot of everyone.
It's top.
It's amazing. There are 3 tenths separating the 2 Williams drivers, sandwiching 8 drivers, but the Ferrari guys cannot believe it. They just don't have the pace in the car, and Aston Martin's gamble is genius.
So, spots, and we're up here, Adam.
My God, my God, my God, my God.
Sorry guys, can't improve for some reason.
And hold them back, but I'm surprised Bortoletto didn't have a shot on the mediums, or Gasly did enough on the softs, but that medium tyre is good. So now what does everyone do heading into Q3?
Yeah, and it's so tight, like half a second we're talking between Antonelli and that time of Sainz. half a second, you can easily, if you're just not hooked up in confidence in each of those sectors, have that lap time dribble away, which is exactly what I assumed the Ferrari drivers, because there's no obvious signs of big mistakes on their laps.
No, and a tenth and a half with Hamilton saying that he doesn't know where more pace is. It's a small enough gap that you can think you've hooked it up, and it's just a little bit of here, a bit there.
Then I've got my E21.
First. Well, Q3 will start at 21 minutes past the hour. It's about 5 minutes time for you. The fans cannot believe what they've seen. Both Ferraris are out before Q3 for the first time since Canada in 2024. And of all the venues, this famous one so close to the factory, Hamilton's bow, Kimi Antonelli, for the first time since the opening Grand Prix of the year, will not make the top 10 shootout.
I wonder, when we come back to race in Italy, how different the picture might look. The whole of the European season ahead of us. The summer will come back after the summer break to Monza. Very different circuit with a whole different range of upgrades on the cars, you'd have thought, although everyone's still looking towards next year and the big rule change. But I wonder if, on a very different circuit, the Italian crowd might get a bit of reward for turning up, and their massive support that they always pour into Ferrari, and now their Italian driver on the grid.
Okay, let's have a look at how Sainz was able to capture the fastest time. We've been talking about this all the way through the weekend. If you can time a toe, it can change your session. So a good lap from Carlos Sainz across all three sectors. But this start to the lap where he was the fastest in the first sector, very, very useful. That's how Verstappen took pole position last year, and that's how Sainz was able to take P1 by the end of Q2.
It's really difficult to manufacture that, though. Was that I couldn't see which car it was. It might have been an Aston Martin ahead, although they were one of the last across the line, so maybe it wasn't them. Either way, you need to try and time that with someone finishing a fast lap. You can't choreograph it coming out of the pits, because you don't want to follow someone for the whole lap. You want it to be, as Sainz had there and Verstappen had last year, they give it the beans to close out their lap as you're opening your lap, and then they get out of the way because their job is done.
What is this look in the car?
Max Verstappen saying, what is this on the McLaren? This is Gasly through the Ravazza, second one around this racetrack.
Let's go. That was a good lap. Let's go! That was a good lap. Let's go. Very good job.
Excellent. Same again.
Gasly loves this place. He's been as high as 4th on the grid around this circuit. 2 top 5 starts.
So now if they can bury themselves deep into this, it'll be even better on a circuit that is not that easy to overtake. Everyone seems to be heading out on the soft tyre for now, so it's going to be a like-for-like first roll of the dice for pole position that will be very important for race day tomorrow. It's a long run to the first corner. It's possible to pass at the first corner. Thereafter, it's going to be a long race of cat and mouse, we'd have thought. So hooking it all up right now is going to be critical, and that, remember, has not been the strength so far from McLaren this year at this part of the Grand Prix qualifying.
So Fernando Alonso has out-qualified Lance Stroll at every single Grand Prix qualifying session so far this year. Is the first time that he's made it into Q3 this season. So the team trying something different with the strategy, and they've managed to get both cars through for the first time this year. We've got Aston Martin taking part, and sadly for the fan on the left-hand side of that chap, we do not have Ferrari. Both Leclerc and Hamilton, along with Antonelli, Bortoleto, Colapinto, the 5-4 at the second part of qualifying. This is Q3 though, low fuel, attacking laps, and the soft tyre on the cars at the moment. You're looking at Lando Norris's current qualifying form as he looks to return to pole position for the second time this season.
Yeah, it looks like Stroll is the first to open his lap. Alonso, who was behind him on track, choosing not to fall into that sort of benefit of a bit of slipstream on the straight, but disadvantage of some dirty air thereafter. So he's left plenty of space as the McLaren opens his lap.
No one has the benefit of the turn one slipstream on this lap, so it's going to be like for like. Norris starts his flyer, now Piastri crosses the line to start his, and Verstappen's going to be just behind him, heading down towards the final corner.
Well, this is a big lap for Lando Norris, who has been quick at every single weekend so far this year in Formula One at various stages of practice, qualifying and the Grand Prix. But it's Q3 that has provided plenty of hurdles so far. He's looking for a foundation lap that gives him the chance to attack later on, and he's all over the curb through Peratella.
Absolutely giving it everything at the start of this middle sector through Acqua Minerale, then the two-part right-hander, and Piastri is a tenth and a half up on his teammate in the first sector. It wasn't the best opening to the lap, but through the weekend we've seen Norris be quicker in the final third as they head now down towards the Rivazzas.
Yeah, and then Verstappen has taken that first sector time further down, well over a tenth on Piastri. And what really struck me, Jolene, was just how controlled the McLaren was as it climbed out of Acqua Minerale. They've got great rear stability.
Okay, first over the line, Lando Norris with a 14.9. He immediately backs out of it. We go on board with the Australian driver Oscar Piastri, trying to be ahead of his teammate once again in Formula One. This was the weakness last year. It's turned into a strength in 2025. He's ahead by nearly a tenth and a half, but they're both a threat when it comes to the reigning world champion, Max Verstappen. One corner to go.
Russell's in this as well on a flyer. Max is right up to the gravel out of the final corner.
He's got the most poles this year in Formula One, and he's got provisional pole in Imola with run one. 7 minutes to go, and it's 0.04 of a second better than Oscar Piastri. Russell continues with a strong lap time, but it's not strong enough to threaten those at the front, and the top four in the order are separated by just over 2.5 of a second. It's Verstappen ahead of the two McLarens. Piastri ahead of Norris, Russell in fourth, Hadjar fifth at the moment, and then the Aston Martin sixth and seventh. The Williams pair have been quick all weekend long. Gasly has been strong in practice as we see what Alex Albon can do. Can he get ahead of the Aston Martins? That's got to be the aim for the Thai driver. He gets into 8th position. What about Carlos Sainz? With a slipstream from Gabriel Bortoleto. Last time out he was fastest. This time he's ahead of his teammates and he is in 8th position. The Aston Martin's coming alive around Imola. It's Verstappen, the driver to beat on the second runs.
And he did just such a massive first sector. He did a massive first sector last year. It got him pole, but that was the massive slipstream that we've been talking about. The Nico Hulkenberg run down to turn 2 in the first braking zone. Here he's done it all on his own, and you can see the difference. 1.5 tenths Verstappen takes on Piastri. He takes 3 tenths on Norris in the first part of the lap, and then it just slightly goes back towards the McLarens as the lap goes on, but the damage is done through just the first 2 chicanes. Quite high speed, quick changes of direction. Red Bull are strong in high-speed corners, and Max is strong around this circuit. That's going to be tough to beat.
It is indeed, but psychologically, the feeling that it gives you of power is probably the wrong word, but knowing that you've got the time that others have to beat, he'll know instinctively where he can improve on the lap, and you'd be foolish not to back him to put that into play. As we join Russell down into Akmona Rally, a little hesitant, and that's exactly, Jolene, what I was highlighting. When we looked at that, when it was Lando Norris and McLaren, the way he was able to go through the compression and then rise up into the curb, the McLaren looked like it was on scale electrics.
Their rear grip is phenomenal. It helps them on race day, it helps them keep the tyres alive as well. And it is their big strength, and that's why they have the fastest part in the middle sector. They're probably getting up their hill. It's difficult to get the traction on, as we saw with Russell there. And that's where Norris was stronger. I'd say that cost George a little bit of time. It's a reasonable run in the context of Imola up to the Variante Alta there at the top of the hill. And that might have been a bit for Russell to get into the top 3 at least. There's only a half a tenth or just more between the 2 Brits, 3rd and 4th. We jumped on board with him at the end of the lap, and he looked perfect through the revatzers. I thought he was going to be closer than he was in the end.
Just looking at lap times, I know we've got one more run to go, but this is actually a sort of step back into the past, and there's a much bigger spread if you look between Verstappen at 14.7, Hadjar in 5th on 15.7. You know, that's the sort of times display that we used to have in Formula One. We're not used to seeing a second cover so few cars.
Well, to explain a little bit of that potentially, Hadjar was on used tyres, as was Sainz, Albon and Gasly. And Aston Martin, we've seen, do flyers on the medium better than they've been using the soft. So I expect that'll close down slightly. Although when the front runners do completely flex everything in Q3, they sometimes do put a bit more margin to the midfielders.
This is just the magical moment, isn't it? This is what I loved growing up as a kid, watching the exceptionals extract that last little bit of performance that you talk about, Jolien. And as a driver, even putting myself back in behind the visor, this was the moment of just the ultimate performance of a Grand Prix car. It's fantastic.
And George Russell will attempt to take pole position using the medium tyre. So we've seen this tactic used by Aston Martin. They are at it again, but this time we see George Russell doing the same thing. Meanwhile, the current top 3 are on the soft tyre once again. You heard from DC about this magical moment, about the drivers at the limit. DC has taken pole position around this circuit on 2 occasions. Are we going to see a strategic gamble with the tyres work for George Russell for his first pole of the year?
I like it because I don't think he's got much to lose. There is that big gap between Russell and everyone else. There's no Antonelli in this. There's no Ferraris in this. Is he going to be beaten by, you know, in inverted commas, midfielder today? I don't think so with the time he's put on the board. So Mercedes have looked at Aston Martin. They thought, we'll have a go. We'll have a go and see if this does give a bit of pace. And if it finds him a couple of tenths, then he could be on pole. It's worth a crack.
There are the previous pole position holders, Verstappen and the last 2 runnings, and then Hamilton in 2021. A race that Verstappen eventually won. Bottas took the first pole here, a race eventually won by Hamilton. Then you tick all the way back to Michael Schumacher in 2006, which was the last time we ran this race under the name of the San Marino Grand Prix. It's the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix these days, and it is Verstappen, Piastri out there. Now, Sainz getting a little bit hot under the collar because we've got 90 seconds left as everyone gets on with it.
Yeah, he needs to pass Gasly because he's under pressure for actually getting a flying lap in. And now, just behind him, we get our first attempt at pole for Oscar Piastri then. Starting the lap, he's a good way ahead of his rivals at this point. He's by far the first of the main contenders to start it, so let's watch him through the first couple of chicanes. Neat and tidy through Tamburello. The Villeneuve chicane now, where Yuki Tsunoda had his big smack. Feels like a long time ago now. It's an improvement for Piastri. In fact, it's much better for him. He's now into the realm of Verstappen's pace through Sector 1, and we know the McLaren is better as the lap goes on.
Yeah, I think that officially means it's on, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, Piastri trying to put himself into a position that he scored in China and Bahrain.
Aye, aye. He looks glued. He looks absolutely glued. There's a line of cars ahead, and they're all going to be bunching up, trying to get their laps in at the end of this one. Russell jumps out of the way. Then there's Sainz. They're all hovering out of the way of a potential pole up here for Piastri.
Well, Piastri would have been distracted by that, but it's good enough to go to pole position for Oscar Piastri by a 1/10 of a second. They were queued up in front of him. It's now over to Lando Norris and Max Verstappen. Will they all get over the line to start the lap? George Russell does get over the line with 2 seconds to go.
Yeah, but Norris is not quick enough in that first sector. Verstappen, on the other hand, has lowered it further, so we are going to have a shootout for pole.
Alex Albon goes up to 5th position in the Williams. It's frantic out there once again. Norris is hustling the car, but he's not finding personal bests.
No, Max has got Oscar Piastri by 2/10 in the first sector, so how can the Red Bull cling on round the rest of the lap? Lando scrabbling into the final rebatters. I don't think he's done enough here.
Verstappen does not have a personal best in the middle part of the lap. Can Norris find something inspirational at the end? No. He remains in 3rd position. And now, how much risk will Max Verstappen take? He's got 1 corner to go. Here's the left-hander. How early does he apply the throttle? Good grip from the rear of the car. Verstappen versus Piastri for pole position. And he misses out. Max Verstappen misses out by 0.03 of a second.
George Russell is on a tidy lap on his medium tyres as well. Let's not forget about him, because he has done a good improvement in the middle sector.
Carlos Sainz is about to cut the beam and go up to 6th position. Well, he's looking to do a top 6 performance in qualifying 3 times. Russell over the line, and he's missed out by a 1/10 of a second. He gets ahead of Lando Norris on the medium tyre, so they improve a place. Norris down to 4th on the grid, and Piastri versus Verstappen was separated by 0.03 of a second. But it's Oscar Piastri for the 3rd time this season on pole position. The man who thought he had the front row last year and was demoted by penalty in a straight fight with the man whose title he's trying to take. He's on pole.
And you are pole position. Great job, buddy.
Oh, I was going to lose my if that last corner cost me pole. Well done, everybody. It was not the easiest session, but nicely done.
How is he so calm? He has delivered a massive pole lap. That one is a big one for Oscar on a circuit that's not easy to overtake. He's got Max alongside him, and I'm already looking forward to that at the start tomorrow. But that was a reference to all the traffic he had at the revatters. The final 2 left-handers, 3 cars, all got out of his way. But it is a distraction. Fair play to Piastri for holding his nerve, holding his concentration through that, and hanging on to pole position.
Oscar's on pole. Max Verstappen pushed him all the way. He's on the front row. George Russell used the medium to get to 3rd position. Lando Norris is in 4th, and Fernando Alonso is in 5th position.
And you are pole position. Great job, buddy.
Oh, I was going to lose my if that last corner cost me pole. Well done, everybody. It was not the easiest session, but nicely done.